Good morning, everybody. I'm getting it together. Joelle, there's snow for you already? That is crazy. It's the beginning of October, isn't it? Oh my gosh. I just noticed Susan and Joelle, you're going to meet each other later at 8 p.m. tonight, my time, when we do our Edward Sands Frost composing with stencils class. So that will be fun. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Penny. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Connie from Newfoundland. Oh, and the funny thing about the class, I know I've said this before, is we've now got 4 people in the class, all Canadian. Isn't that funny? What does it mean? Good morning, Marie. Good to see you. Did I say good morning to Linda? Happy to see everybody. I've got so much stuff today. I got on such a crazy bender. Good morning, Gabriel, Chrissy. Please keep, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day. Oh my gosh. See, t-shirt weather versus snow. We get right across all of the seasons here. Good morning, Janice. Oh, a rainy day. We had that yesterday. Finally some sun today. Good morning, Sheila. It's good morning, Olivia. You're back. It's shining in Ireland. Oh, you've got those glowing green hills, huh? So nice. Well, I got on such a bender last night with Magdalena Briner Eby. I don't know if you know this artist. I know I've mentioned her before. I was looking for this book for ages. It was on Jossie's bedside table. Such a bender. I have to share so many things with you because I went on this crazy history rabbit hole with this book. It's a very small book. Looks a lot like the Hutchinson book because it's the same publisher. This book is called Rug Hooking Traditions with Magdalena Briner Eby, E-B-Y. And it is by Evelyn Lawrence and Kathy Wright, who did the most tremendous scholarship sort of writing with this book, research, really academic book. But I want to share quite a bit of this with you. Let me see if I can see. This was published in 2011, Traditions by Wright and Company. So this is available on Amazon. If you Google it this way or you plug it in this way, I'm going to show you this book. It's over the top great. And one of the things that got me going about that, and I've shown you this before, but I'll just recap, is this rug that I have not gotten to at all, but I bought it off eBay. It's not one of her designs, but it's certainly similar to her designs. Super primitive, done with like ripped strips, not cut, but ripped, really wide, way wider than an 8, more like a 9, 10, something like that. But so cool. And I can't wait to get to it. So I'm going to be working on that soon. That's not there. It's really a nice horse, very much in the style of Magdalena. So I want to show that to you. And one of the things that got me going was that a rug. Good morning, Christine. Hey, from Chicago. Good morning, Karen. What got me going was a rug ended on eBay yesterday that I was watching. Oh, let me see if I can figure out. I should have looked it up. It went for a lot. I was super into it. I was watching it because it reminded me of a Magdalena. It went for $828. Let me show you this rug. $828. Good morning, Anne-Marie. This is the rug. So I got all fluffy over this because it really looks like a Magdalena. And when you see the book, you'll see, I'll show you this again at the end. It really looks like one of hers. And if this is one of hers, I will die 1,000 deaths for not jumping in. That's a lot of money for a rug. It's obviously very primitive and it's old. But yeah, now it gave me like instant stomach cramps, wondering if I miss like the opportunity of a lifetime to pick up a Magdalena rug. I'm going to do the drawing for the Nancy Thomas at the end, if you're wondering. I just want to share her work with you in this book with you a little bit. As usual, I won't show you everything because if you're interested, I want you to get the book. These people who wrote it did an amazing piece of work here. And I'm so in love. It's crazy. This is a heavy history episode because she was such an interesting person. Not a ton known about her, but an interesting life. This is Magdalena here. Everybody at that time looked stoic, and part of it, I'm sure you've heard, is the way that they did the photographs. You had to sit still for so long that you looked like you were, half dead, but had nothing to do with the person's personality on the inside. I'm sure everybody was, at least for her and her large family, seemed like they were having an amazing life. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her life and set up her background so that by the time we look at her rugs, you'll have a real feel for who she was, when she lived. She was from rural Pennsylvania. Good morning, Beverly. She had such an interesting life for a person at this time who was living in a sort of new territory. Just listen. It's so good. It's so good, this book. So these are her parents. Now, these are some serious faces right here. Not so much her dad, John George Briner, but her mom has a bit of a serious face going on there. There's something going on for sure, right? Life was not easy, I'm sure, but her parents were, her mother was also Magdalena. Her father was John George. They had like a little log cabin, and then they kind of went up in the world a little bit, and they built a house that they named Mansion Farm. I thought that was so cute. She had many brothers and sisters, and I want to tell you about their lives because it'll put you in the place of her. You know, we don't know when she started rug hooking, and we don't know how many rugs she did, and we'll get to what her signature things are to look out for. But she is extremely collectible. I don't really think that's a Magdalena, because I think if it were, it would be in the thousands, not the hundreds. But it's not marked that way either. So to be continued. But this is the story of her many siblings, just to give you an idea of the time and the place that she was living in, to have so much color and creativity inside her, living in a sort of difficult time in history, things being what they were. This will give you a kind of window into her family life. So those were her two parents that we just saw. She had a sister named Sally who got married and who died from typhoid a year later. So that happened all the time. So that was unfortunately the end of Sally. But she did work as, before she died, obviously, not after she died, as a laundry matron in an insane asylum, which they would have said in those days. And it's believed that because her sister had access to a lot of laundry, ripped things, old things, discarded things, that a lot of the materials that she used for her rugs came from this sister who worked in the insane asylum, like a bedlam kind of situation. Then she had a brother named Jacob who never married. He worked as a shoemaker, and he farmed his grandparents' territory. Hey, Linda. I love the history too. It's so much fun. And then Johannes Hammer, another brother, he was married, and they had 4 children, 2 of which were twin girls. You hardly ever hear that. And he had a cabinet making shop, and he farmed. So this is busy times, busy lives. George was another brother. He married and had 5 children. He worked as a carpenter, and he also farmed. This is rural Pennsylvania. These people do not sleep by the sound of things. She had a sister named Lizzie. She got married, and they had no children. There's not much known about that sister. Very quiet life, hopefully a happy one. Hannah Mary, another sister, got married and had 3 children. Her and her husband owned several farms, houses, and properties, and it is said that they paid for all of them with gold. So things were going well for that sister. She made a good marriage, and life was fairly easy. And then the last sibling was Daniel. He was the youngest, and he got married and had 4 children. He was a special agent for the Iron City Fire Insurance Company in Pittsburgh. So he had like a sort of white-collar job. He was not a farmer. And an interesting thing about him, 3 of her brothers, Jacob, John, and George, all served in the Civil War. To give this a place and a time, they served in the Civil War. And from the years 1861 to 1865, none of them died in the war. Good morning, Karen. And Daniel, when he served in the Civil War, was actually too young. He snuck in to serve. But isn't that interesting when you hear things like that? Those were her siblings. That laundry list was a catalog of her siblings. I think this is a better shot of her mom. And this is Daniel, the brother who got into the Civil War too young, the youngest of the siblings. And this is a happier one of the mother, looking a bit more comical and what's the word? Sort of reachable, conversable, happy, normal. So Magdalena, when she was 23, married Jacob Eby. So that's where she gets her last name, who was 25 at the time. And this is in 1855. So, you know, we've done a lot on the history of rug hooking. Rug hooking becomes a thing in the 19th century, in the early 19th century, not at like 1800, but later. So she's really getting involved very early on in rug hooking. We know that there's lots of other things you could do in terms of rug making and crafts and handcrafts. But as far as rug hooking, she is really early in the timeline of people who are rug hooking, particularly in Pennsylvania, because it is a rural spot. So she marries Jacob, who also served in the Civil War. Jacob's father was a Dunkard. That is not the same thing as a drunkard. That means he was a German Baptist elder. He was like a churchman. He had a position at the church. So she marries him, and the newlyweds immediately moved into a house that was called the Mud House. And the reason it was called the Mud House was because it was made up of like logs and mud. That was like the type of stucco construction that it had. It wasn't a derogatory thing, but I thought it was funny that she went from mansion farm to the mud house. It doesn't sound good, but it sounds like she was very, very happy. So she's in the mud house. She had her only child, Ellen, a little girl, 1 year and 3 months after their marriage. And unfortunately, her husband, Jacob, before Ellen turned 1, also contracted typhoid and died. So this is a huge game changer in so many ways, because she will, at this point in her life, she will live to be 80 something. I had it written down. She lives to be 83. So he will die when she is 24, and she will never again in her life be the head of a household. She will move back into Mansion Farm with her huge family and the brothers and sisters that are there, and the parents and the grandparents. There's aunts and uncles. Good morning, Heather. But she will, oh my gosh, Lisa, what did you say? The rug hooking group I'm part of is called the Magdalenas, based off of her, as she lived in the same county as I do. She's buried close to my house. Fun fact, we share the same birth date. This is crazy. Thank you so much for telling that. I'm coming out your way. I just can't stand it. The Magdalena family donated the last remaining hooked rug owned by the family to the Historical Society of Perry County. So Perry County is where she's from. Perry County is where you're from. We're coming to visit, Lisa. I'm not joking. I can't stand it. I got so crazy reading this last night, and there's actually a map. So I'm going to show that in a minute. Awesome information. There's so much more to know about this. Lisa's got part of the question marks that I can't fill in. That is so cool to have that local connection. So at this point in Magdalena's life, it's kind of a funny thing because their family seems quite normal for these times. It could have been that she lost her daughter, Ellen, and life just went upside down, crazy, depression, anguish, misery until death. But she was given joint custody of Ellen with like 3 of the men in her family. So this was typical. The paternal grandfather and uncle, they also had equal rights. Oh, I have goosebumps too, because you're so close to her. Lisa, I feel like you're so close to her. I wish I could reach through and touch you, because it's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Incidentally, you're degree number 2, because my old piano player, when I was a cabaret singer, now plays with Kevin Bacon. So if I'm number 2, then you're number 3 degrees. And as far as being degrees to Magdalena, I guess we're all at least a 3, because Lisa is in the same county as her. So there's got to be some crossovers there too. Life is so fun, huh? So she moves back into her house and with her daughter. And as bad as this all is, life seems okay. She will never have her own home again. She's a widow in her mid-20s, and she's helping with the farm. She's helping with everybody's business. She's expected to do all the work of a woman, which is a lot. And then the women would also help with the farming. So they're doing all of their sort of interior world stuff around the house. But then she's also helping, in the farms. Women would also help with that. So they're playing all of the bases. Women basically never sleep and are never in this period, particularly in America, expected to be idle. Ever. So the fact that she even found the time to work on rugs, of course, that was a good productive thing to do, is still a marvel. So yeah, this line says, in the 1800s, the premise was that women were never idle. We got that, right? I mean, it goes without being said, just looking at what their lives looked like. Magdalena's hooked rugs may have mostly been gifts and things for special occasions. We don't have a good number for her at all. We do not know the total number of rugs attributed to Magdalena. It appears it was between 30 and 50 rugs at least were purchased by one antique dealer at one time. So that is an absolute minimum. But there could have been other antique dealers who swooped in early and got other rugs. We know that there are some that are not accounted for, but like with the Hutchinson rugs, we just don't know how many. So this is a huge to be continued. Now, this chapter is on materials. I want to read you a little bit of this because let me first show you this cover again, because this is what her style is like. And we're going to talk about this lollipop design because that is like her iconic design. And you can get these patterns today. I've seen people hooking them. So during Magdalena's hooking years, which could have easily covered 60 to 70 years of her life, right? Could have. There's no reason to think she wasn't hooking before she was married, because the dowry chest, right, the thing that you would bring to the marriage with the things that you had made was a huge thing and a consideration, when people made arrangements to marry. There's no reason to think that some of her rugs weren't part of her dowry chest, particularly one that's filled with animals and it's very childlike and playful. But we'll come to that in a minute. So she may have been hooking for 60 to 70 years with everything else, boggled in. And she was using the fabric of old clothing. She lived with a lot of people in her family. And then remember the sister that worked at the asylum. She had access to a lot of old clothes and she would use them, save them and use them. Also, her brother's Civil War uniforms, she's thought to have used for 3 particular rugs that I'll show you, because once they were done, they were done. I mean, not a lot of happy memories of being in a war, and her husband's Civil War uniform. So there are 3 rugs in this book that they think that she used Civil War uniforms because of the color to hook with. So that's really interesting in and of itself. What else does it say? Antique rugs so all antique rugs, unlike our modern rugs, were crazy about sticking with wool. But antique rugs, they didn't have the sort of liberty of being picky about what materials they were using. Antique rugs will predictably be hooked in a variety of textures, as were Magdalena's. And the author is saying primarily comprised of homespuns, calicos, cottons, ginghams, silks, velvets, linsey woolsies, which is a combination of linen and wool, rough country linens like homespuns, and other blends of wovens and knit fabric. So basically anything that she got a hold of, she could hook with. And then there's a little excerpt about the nature, in the Victorian period of the somber colors, because she's using a lot of dark colors. People would not, in terms of costume, people would not necessarily wear a somber color because of their class or because they wanted to be able to get it really dirty before they had to wash it again. There were colors you wouldn't wear, like red, because that was like sort of reserved for medical people. But the reason there are so many dark and somber colors, I'm sure I'm just reminding you, is that it was the Victorian period, and Queen Victoria spent most of it mourning the loss of her husband, the Prince Regent Albert, who she was truly in love with. And the loss of him put her into a severe depression and put a whole generation of people into the fashion of wearing dark clothes to emulate the fashion that she set as the leader. Esther, is it not from Forgotten Farm? Oh, I'm going to have to read back and see what you guys are talking about. Good morning, Brandy. So yeah, you will see a lot of dark colors, but we're going to talk about dyes in a minute too. Now, also important to note, we've talked about this in a few episodes, people who shipped, like trading ships, packing ships, things like that, stopped using barrels in the mid 1800s and started using sacking. So when that happened, there were a lot of sacks around, burlap I'm talking about, or in England, hessian, that you could use as a backing. So now we have got something that we can use other than homespun linen or any kind of a homespun, which wouldn't be super durable, the ones that were actually homespuns and not manufactured. But now there's a possibility of using a sack, which was typically at least 40 inches, right? Because something huge would be packed in it. And that would be a huge leg up, having a backing fabric to start with. But Magdalena is considered at least one of the top, if not the top, sort of pioneer rug hooker in terms of collectability. If you stumble on one of her rugs, if you have one of her rugs, she is uber, super crazy, tippity toppity collectible, because she really works in a folk art style. And her style is completely unique. She's working early and she's super talented, creative, comes from the inside, cannot emulate her work without doing one of her patterns. She's known for having multi sort of, I often say concentric circles, but in this book, they're saying halos around things. That is a style of hers. She's also known for having the cherry, like these birds have it. The cherry in the beak is one of her signature things. And these corner things that we often call lamb's tongues, you can't really call them lamb's tongues on her work because they're rainbows. So one of her design motifs is to always, almost always, have rainbows in the corner with all of the colors that she's got, which isn't a ton. And then there's a chapter about, the numerous dogs, because they had many litters of dogs in their lives, the family, many, many. So you see a lot of dogs, you see a lot of birds, occasional goats. We know that there are some goat rugs missing because the family, it's been passed down. Remember there being rugs with goats around the house. The house was apparently loaded with her hooked rugs. But there's only one known rug with one goat in it. So we know that there's some goat rugs missing where there's multiple goats. So have your eyes open for that, because you never do know. It's right here. It says this: we are still looking for the elusive sheep or lamb. Okay, so not the goat. That both of her great granddaughters remember having around. And a dealer recalls several rugs. A Victorian era dealer recalls several rugs with goats. So any of those motifs, the sheep, the lamb, the goat, these are ones that people are looking for really actively and aggressively. It's important to get this collection complete because she's a proper artist. Why this is about her dyes. Why the red horses? And it said, was it because of the ample amount of red long johns or union suits that people wore in those days? That's a maybe, yes. But also it could be her surroundings, the pokeweed. The pokeweed comes off the berry comes off the pokeweed plant, which grows to be like crazy high, 6 to 10 feet. And it's like a plague to farmers because it's a very intrusive kind of plant and it's very toxic to humans and to livestock. So pokeberries are like not a welcome sight, but they do make great dye. And the berries have traditionally, they are dark purple to like black, but many shades in between, including pink. These berries have been used for ink and dye. And we know, it says in here, Native Americans, it says American Indians, used the ink to decorate their horses. And Civil War soldiers used to write letters to loved ones at home with the pokeberry ink. Settlers used the dye for fabrics, and they would soak it in a hollowed out pumpkin. So when you add pokeberries to the inside of a pumpkin, you get a different pH, everything. You get a different balance, and then it turns brown, like a brown purple rather than a red or a purple. Interesting what you can do with these natural colors. So it's believed that there's a lot of red because of the pokeberries, but maybe also because of the union suits. So there's a lot about dye theory in here. I'm not going to read it all because I'm already running late. Also mentioned, I showed you this book a few times. I was going to take it off the shelf, but I forgot. The Joel and Kate Kopp, K-O-P-P book that we keep referring to. There's stuff about Magdalena in there. So let's look at some of her rugs. This is one of the rugs, 1885 horses that has a Civil War uniform in it. The colors, that sort of blue background is going to be the uniform. And dogs and crows. Family descendants recall a cherry tree in the yard. So again, we've got a dog with cherries. Sorry about the light. It's actually sunny today. Cherries in its beak, and the dog laying down. Note the rainbows, right? She does a lot with streaking and striations. I can't believe I'm running out of time already. Single dog. I won't show you all because if you're interested in the book, I want you to get the book. It's a beautiful book and it's worth it. This is the one that was thought, it's called Domestic Zoo. She didn't name these. People named them afterward. But it's thought that this could have been in her dowry. Look at how many animals are in here. You've got upside down animals, upside down flowers. You've got chickens. You've got some kind of a donkey. She's big with crows too. That was a big motif. Berries, birds, horse. Her leaves, those are very much her leaves. That's not Mondrian. That's Magdalena. She's got hearts. Look at all of the motifs she's got going. It's just incredible. This is one of the ones that they thought would make sense if it was in her dowry and was hooked early. And of course, she does a lot with primitive horses too. So this book is filled with, okay, now we're getting to her folk art horse. This is another one that is using the Civil War uniform, the regular folk art horse right here. And the 3-leaf clover is a real Pennsylvania motif. God, I forgot what it meant. It'll come to me later, but it means 3 things that have to do with like hope and luck and things like that. Not just luck, but it's like a trinity of ideas that it symbolizes, at least in that area. And then her classic, we're getting to like the lollipop era for her. This is called Great Granddaughter's Rug. And it says the great-granddaughter remembers that the family home was filled with hooked rugs made by Magdalena. And they liked it, but they didn't like going out once a year to beat them because there were so many, and it was a project that the kids would do. This sort of lollipop tree or tree of life will become, arguably, along with the crows, maybe her most famous motif. So this is Lollipop Bouquet. This has been done. I'm going to show you the author of the book, that both authors, the co-authors, hooked a lot of these designs. This is arguably her masterpiece of color. Could be a tree of life. It's like it's called Lollipop Bouquet, but it's like it's something like a floral bouquet. It could have a lot of different connotation, but at the end of the day, this is an insanely stylized image for somebody who's living in the mid-Victorian era. Super stylized. Like, how would she even come up with that? You try to, in general, emulate things around you that you see to get design ideas, and then she comes up with the lollipop tree. It's just over the top. But this book is amazing. It shows you images of things that there are, like, for example, this rug called Farm. This is an old photo of it. They don't even know if it's the front or the back, but nobody knows apparently who has this rug right now, and there is no new image of it. So this is, for a small book, it's a great collection of her rugs and her quilts also. And the whole book is filled with images, the whole second half of the book. And do you know what this is right here? It came in the book. This is the Magdalena Briner Eby Trail. Lisa, I think we're on our way. Honestly, I'm really thinking about setting up like a tour in the spring where we can go do this. Go to all these stops, right, along the way. This will be in your backyard, Lisa. You won't have to ride the bus. But I'm seriously thinking about it. You know, if things continue to be sort of okay, we can make a little trip, do some Magdalena Briner Eby stuff, and do some antique stores, do some other rug hooking stuff. I'm seriously thinking about putting a trip together. All of these places that we could go that have to do with her life. And visit the museum too that has some of her stuff there, the Historical Society, visit Lisa. Could be amazing. And I just want, it's a thought. Let me know what you think, because I'm dead serious about it. Like, I'm going out there, but maybe we could go together, some of us. I happened to find this also. This was on the floor next to my bed. This is Folk Art of Rural Pennsylvania by Frances Lichten. And I happened to pull this out. I was looking at this as I fell asleep because it was full of things that I thought related to Magdalena. Let me show you a couple because I'm almost out of time. Fractors, working on fractors, decorated, illuminated type documents were a big thing at that time. So she is being inspired certainly by things around her. The earth is like clay out there, and it's redware. So again, it brings up the question, red, why is everything red? She's seeing a lot of things in red because pottery is a huge thing in this part of Pennsylvania at this time. And it's red clay. It's coming right from the ground. So that could have been one of the many inspirations. But the kinds of images that I'm seeing in that era of Pennsylvania decoration, like things that they would have had around the house as an at least middle-class family, these, you can see how it's a little bit reminiscent of her style. These animals kind of floating in space. Oh, there's also a memorial. I bet that's on the list. But we'll make sure it is, because I am coming. Let me show you a couple more before I run out of time. So also samplers, right? She would have done samplers because she did a lot of crafts. Just check out the busyness of the sampler. Doesn't it remind you a little bit of the busyness of her pieces, how all of these images and motifs are jammed together into one composition? It looks a lot like a Pennsylvania sampler. And here are some examples of, at this time, Pennsylvania beds and coverlets. Again, you've got animals, peacocks, motifs, flowers jammed together. And the point I'm making is that compositions in art that she would have had around her and in her house were extremely busy. Busy in terms of composition. And take a look at these dowry chests, which she certainly had. The Hope chest, which probably had her rugs in it. You can see how busy some of them are, right? You can see the floating things and the floating vines and the extreme decoration. Look at this one up here with lots of animals painted on it. So neat. But yeah, it got me looking at this book because I wanted to look at the things, even shortbread molds, right? Look at how busy these shortbread molds are at that time. All this kind of thing that she would be looking at when she was thinking of designing. Interestingly, This one is not a shortbread roll. Some of these things that look like shortbread stamps are actually wooden stamps that you would dip in ink, and you would put it on your burlap sack when you were exchanging goods or dropping something off or picking something up, and it would have your initials in it. So from an antique point of view, that would be an interesting distinction. Actually, this is the one, the EB stamp, the shortbread stamp. It has this guy's initials, EB. But anyway, my point is that everything that she would have touched and everything that would have been around her would be so highly decorative. Quilting, right? She was a big quilter too. She's really close to the Baltimore school, the Baltimore sort of album applique school of quilting. And you can see how this has a little to do with the way that she designs too. We are 12 on the button. But yeah, I just got looking at this book on rural Pennsylvania art at the same time. There's only one page of rugs in this book, I'm sorry to say, and none of them are hers. It's these 3 rugs that they're showing. They're saying in this chapter was not a big thing to do rug hooking in Pennsylvania. So again, this has a taste of her up on top, and that is not attributed to anybody. So I guess you never know. Maybe I can find out more about that. But these 2 are attributed to different people. This one's even signed. But these are the only 3 hooked rugs that they're showing in this book. But anyway, it was just neat to put this together with this, because this is what she would have been looking at in her house. And this is what she ended up doing herself. Just thought that was so interesting. So I got to make sure I have my trail. Yep. I'm serious. Should we make a plan and go to Pennsylvania, check out this whole thing, check out all the spots, do a little shopping, maybe have some crab cakes or something, see how it goes. Have a great day. I'm glad we didn't get spammed. I'll check the comments before you go. Your site says 3 p.m. for the workshop. No, Susan, the workshop is at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We had to change it because the stencils didn't come. I'm going to send out the Zoom call for everybody who's doing the Edward Sands Frost class tonight at 8 p.m. I'm going to send out the Zoom right after this, but 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh my God, I didn't pick the winner. Holy mackerel, Marie. Okay, I didn't pick the winner. Here we go. Between 1 and 50, let's generate a winner. 26. All right. Number 26 is going to win this pattern. Number 26, in case you don't know who you are, is, hold on, guys. Number 26 is Kathy Edwards. Kathy, you won. Let me know. You might have already told me. Did you want it on monk's cloth or linen? I'll get this out to you right away. Kathy, great job. I'm so happy for you. I know exactly who you are. I'm really happy for you. Congrats to everybody who entered. The pattern is available for sale on ribboncandyhooking.com. Have a great day, Elizabeth. I'm going to meet you for lunch at the Indian restaurant, and I'm going to make a pig and a fool out of myself the way that I'm about to eat and take a break. I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to have a regular coffee time tomorrow. We'll start Zooming next week. See you at coffee time tomorrow. Have a great day.